24 hours. 24 hours. That's how much time I have in a day. How about you guys? 24 hours? Okay. Look at somebody near you. Just look around real quick here. Guess what? 24 hours. Okay? Elon Musk, 24 hours in a day. Taylor Swift, 24 hours in a day. We all have 24 hours in a day. You agree? Okay. So, we have to think about how we use that. Okay? Because some of us choose to have two careers. The two careers is we have our job, some call it a day job, although it may not be during the day. It's the one that pays the bills. And then we have our dream job on the side. And there's pros and cons for this, advantages and disadvantages, which we'll be talking about today. So just show of hands, how many of you have two careers? Okay, we've got a few people here. That's good. That's good. Now, those of you that raised your hands, how many of you have trouble finding time for your passion career? Anybody? Okay, I'm there. And again, we're back to the 24 hours, right? Okay, so you have to think about it. You're working late nights. You're working weekends. You're working. That's what you're doing, right? You're just working. And there are times where you have to think to yourself, like, I have a goal, I have a milestone that I set for myself. And guess what? Maybe nobody else knows about that milestone. But if you don't do that, you won't progress. And you know that. So you're up till the wee hours of the morning working on your milestone. If you make it, or if you don't, nobody else may know. Nobody in the world may know. So that's a little bit of isolation there, right? But it is important to you for moving on and doing that. So that's what I want us all to think about is, the passion that we have, how we're going to spend time on it, how it's different than our daytime job, but it's very different in a very special way as well. So let's talk about my journey. I started my side business about 7 years ago. And I call it my side business because it's my passion. Okay, and so I started it while I had a full-time job. So I had some advantages. And it was not a straight path. Okay, so it was a very crooked path. First of all, you start usually with discovery. You're trying to figure out what you want to do. So I had the advantage, since I had a job, of time. I could figure out what I wanted to do, and I took my time doing that. It actually took over a year to figure out that, hey, I enjoy speaking, I enjoy training, I enjoy working with small businesses. So that's where I sort of narrowed in over time in my discovery. Then I had to think about, am I good at speaking? Well, maybe I should go to Toastmasters. I went to Toastmasters, I work on my speaking. Then I had to think about, can I get paid for speaking? So I went to the National Speaker Association, joined there, did some training, did some learning. What about my topics? I had to think in terms of what I'm going to do for a product, which all of you have to probably think about. And there was a lot of twists and turns there. We call them pivots, right? I started out with leadership because I was a leader in my job, so it was a nice fit. But then I sort of pivoted because there was a lot of leaders out there. And so I found that design thinking and innovation was something that was very popular. So I took that on for a while. Then about 3 years ago, somebody asked me, can you give a talk on AI? And I had worked with AI like 15 years ago at IBM, and I understood it well. So I gave that talk. And now I'm doing what I call riding the wave. Okay, it's my other pivot. But right now it's something that's hot, it's something that I enjoy doing. So that's all the curves and things that I did. So how do you keep your sanity and how do you keep your direction while you're doing this? And for me, what that is it's something I call vision. And this is a little bit different than a company's vision maybe. The vision I'm talking about is I would have some idea in my head that I would plant in my head. And I would plant it very well in my head. So when I'm driving down the road, it would hit me, or it would be something involving the shower, it would come up again. So my vision was always there. And when I talk about this, I always have to bring up my first love, Kara. Kara was my first love. It was kindergarten. Okay, so she would ride to school with me, and because we went to the same school, we lived near each other. And Kara she was very vocal. She liked to talk. And she was always telling me, I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to be a nurse. She had a little dance along with it. I said, that's a goal. That's a goal. Guess what Kara's doing today? Anybody? She's a nurse. Yes. Kara was a goal setter. One of the best I know in my life. She would die if she knew I was telling the story, but she is a goal setter. Ray, am not a goal setter. I learned that. I cannot say I'm going to do something next year and boom, I'm there. Okay, so my vision took the place of that. My vision said that I wanted to start a business. That was there for a while. And I formulated it in my head and I thought about it. The benefit of having the vision is whenever a decision would come up, that vision drove my decision. So it worked a little differently than a goal because the vision could change over time, and it did. Okay, but it started out with I wanted to have a business. Then I wanted my business to be more successful. I wanted to make some more money. I wanted to have more people involved in it. So that took a little bit of time, and I had to formulate that in my head. So one of my most recent ones here was I had a vision of I want to be laying on the beach, looking at my phone, I'm drinking the other hand, and seeing how much money I made today. Not a bad vision, because what I wanted to do essentially was get my business to work for me rather than me just working for my business, right? So that was my vision. And then a little bit later after that, I had created an ebook, and when I give talks, I give away the ebook sometimes, so that was the reason I created it. And it was on Amazon. And I was jogging through the park. It was Blacklick Park, some of you may know it. And I got a text. So I pulled out my phone, looked at it real quick. It was from Amazon. They sold a copy of my ebook for 45 cents to someone in Australia. I stopped. Yes, that's my vision. I made some money. I wasn't laying on the beach. I was jogging through the park. Okay? But you can see how the vision does help guide you, especially when you have to make decisions. Like, am I going to take on this work? Am I going to pivot this way? The vision really should guide you. So that's something to think about. And here's things that you should think about with your visions. You know, what is it that you are looking for? What defines your success? Is it extra income? Okay, because that's definitely something most of us have. Is it personal freedom? Okay, there's a big benefit, as we know, to having your own business. Or is it just something you really want to roll into? You want to grow this thing, it's going to be full-time? These could all be part of your vision. But, you know, think about how having a good description in your head can really help you. Okay, so why do we start a side business? It's tough to have two careers at a time. It's very difficult at times. And this is a quote from Duns and Bradstreet from a study they did. But most business owners have a higher job satisfaction than traditional employment. How many of you agree with that? Okay. Can you tell me why? Why do you think that? Why do you agree with that? Yes?
You're building something for yourself rather than your employer. So you feel like you're actually working towards your future.
Very good. Your name?
AJ.
AJ, okay, AJ had a good point there. Yeah, you're actually doing something for yourself. Okay, that's so good. Anybody else?
Autonomy.
Autonomy.
And you can work when you want and do the work you enjoy and make the choices that are right for you and not for someone else.
You call the shot, right? I will wake up at 3 in the morning and I will have something hit me, okay? Because I have unsolved problems in my head, and the subconscious mind is not like unsolved problems, so it's always churning. And I wake up and it's like, oh my gosh, and I have my phone out and I'm speaking into my phone. I don't want to lose it, right? You have the autonomy, although it doesn't bother me because I have the autonomy. I can do what I want when I want. I wake up and I decide what I'm going to do that day. Very good. Anybody else? What was your name? Sorry. Natalie. Okay.
Freedom to do what you want.
Freedom to do what you want. Okay. Your name?
Norman.
Norman likes that. Okay, I'm going to give you guys coffee mugs because that's a great intro. participating with Ray has its benefits. I knew your name. I just needed to do it that way. There you go. All right. So let's look at some of the reasons that, I believe that it is good to start a side business. Financial security definitely should be up there. For me, I had children that I needed to get through college because I started my business later in life. You may be wanting to do something for yourself. You may want a home, whatever it is you want. Okay, but financial security is there because I love the fact that my day job had a upper limit. There was a ceiling. I could make so much money, but I wasn't going to ever make a lot of money. So with my side job, there's no limit. Lower risk. If you have the job that's putting food on the table, paying your rent, you don't have as much risk if you want to take a chance and test something out, pivot it. If you don't have that side job, you have to be able to support yourself. This is going to take some time. So that's a big benefit. And there's time for skill development. As I mentioned, I spent years just getting myself up to a point where I felt like I was good enough at doing what I did. Building your network is very important, something we're doing today as well. And then building a foundation for scaling, because it takes a lot to get to the point where you feel like you can scale, you can move up. So if we look, I don't know if many of you saw this startup curve, but it's an emotional startup curve, and it's what a lot of us go through. And so, you get all excited at the beginning, you're telling everybody, I'm going to start a business, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do. And then the reality sets in, and you see how much work it is, and how, you're pretty much working on your own a lot of times. And so you drop down a sort of a sorrow point, but that's where you're experimenting, and that's where you're pivoting. You start working on it, productivity finally happens a little bit, and maybe you start to scale. Okay, so the benefit for me was that through most of that low period, I had my job. Now, once you start to scale, that's the point where you really want to think about doing it full time. Okay, and that's what happened for me. So that's sort of the ideal situation, but that is definitely a benefit time-wise. And I'll see some of you taking pictures, but I have copies of the slides. There's a QR code at the end you can use it. Okay, so, and then the final one is the creative outlet for your passion. I think a lot of you know this. I would be thinking about my job, my exciting job that I really wanted to do a lot. Okay, so that's something that motivated me. It kept me going. It got me through days of my long days at the full-time job. So you want to think about the match if you have a choice here in looking for a job or the job you currently have. You have to think about, how does this fit in to me working with my startup going on the side? Okay, so is the work time available on both sides? For me, I was working a Monday through Friday 9-to-5 job, although I had to work outside of those hours a good bit. But that meant that I did most of my work in the evenings and weekends, and that's where I did my side business mostly. And then when I had to go somewhere and work with a client, it was a vacation day. I get back from vacation. Hey, Ray, how was your vacation? Oh, it was good. I was in Toledo training somebody. But okay, so you wanted to try to fit as best as you can. So you need the time off. You also want to think about the transferable skills, because I was in a leadership position in my day job, and that helped a lot because that's what I trained on. And whenever I talked about innovation, I actually had an international team I was innovating with, so I had a lot of good experience there. Also, I learned about AI many years ago at IBM, so that's something that was a big benefit for me now. So during the time I was working. But whatever it is you're doing, even if it's just a coffee shop or whatever, you have customer skills, for example. You can interface well with people who are your clients. Now, a lot of jobs that we have, we're sort of the interface to the company. So that is a big, powerful skill to have. You have to think about conflicts of interest. Let's talk about that for a minute. Whoops. Oh, we'll get into that in a minute. First of all, though, I want to have a chance for you to win another coffee mug. Anybody here watch the NFL draft? Okay. I'm not a big fan of watching the whole thing, but it was in Pittsburgh. That's my hometown, so I was all excited, this year. But anyway, we're going to do the 2 career day draft pair. So what I want you to tell me is this, and you will get a coffee mug for telling me. I want you to tell me, from your day job, what is the one skill that you think this is your top draft pick, right? The one skill that you think transfers very well to another job, or could. I know not all of you have the two jobs. Anybody? What's one skill? Yes?
Strategy?
Strategy, very good. Because you have to make decisions, right? In your day job. That's really good. What's your name?
Nick.
Nick, I like that. And it's really, we talk about this as transferable skills, but it's also just leverage. You can leverage what you got from this. Anybody else? All right, well, yes? Communication, okay. Very good. So, can you give an example, maybe? Tell me a little more about it.
Getting people to understand and align on goals or an idea, making sure things are clear requirements.
Okay, getting people to align, to work and communicate with people. And, I'll be talking about AI tomorrow, but in the AI-driven world, communication is critical as a human skill. So that's really good. What's your name? Sam. Thank you, Sam. All right. Okay, so let's look at the conflict of interest. There's legal and ethical considerations when you have a full-time job and a side job. And the biggest thing is you got to avoid a conflict of interest. You cannot compete with the company you're working with. And that has to be a solid role. So I was working for a bank, and I was offered to give a talk to JP Morgan, and I turned it down. Okay, because as a full-time person working at a bank, I could not justify that I would be up there speaking to a competitor in a way. So you have to take that into account. A lot of employment contracts have restrictions, so that first day when you're signing papers, we're doing it online today, you're going to get something maybe that says, hey, you can't compete with us, and if you leave us, it might be 6 months till you compete with us. There's all kinds of things in there, so you got to watch that. And what I say is transparency is really good versus discretion. So it's good to be transparent, and I always told my boss about my side job, but I didn't wear it on a shirt. I didn't tell many other people about it because there was not a need to know. Okay, so I wasn't hiding it, but I wasn't broadcasting it either. And so, it's sort of like a don't ask, don't tell situation. Just, if it comes up, you have to address it. That's the way I always viewed it. And accounting and taxes, that's something to take into account is now you need to separate those things. You have your side business, so you got to keep track of all of that along with what you're making on your other job and your other taxes you normally do. So that's all part that everybody here should recognize that. But those are the real things to consider, but not in any way to hold you back. But that's also a consideration when you work for someone, is if you're working for someone that is in your dream job area, you very likely are going to have some conflicts there, and that could be a problem for you. Okay, here's the challenges that we deal with working two jobs, and actually these apply to anybody who wants to start out. Did anybody here ever hear of the marshmallow test? It goes way back. Very good, Cyrus. Okay, 1970s, Stanford University. That's a long time back, right? They took some children, 5-year-old children, and they put them in a room and they sat them down. And they did this with like over 100. They did it with a pretty good size sample. And they put a marshmallow down on a plate. And they said, you want that marshmallow? And they're like, yes, yes, yes. And then they would say, okay, here's the thing. You can have that marshmallow, or I need to go out and talk to somebody. And if you wait until I come back, you can have 2 marshmallows. Okay, so that was the test. That was it. And what they found was about half the kids ate the marshmallow. They couldn't sit there. They're fidgeting, looking at it, and they ate the marshmallow. Other kids just sat there, hands folded sometimes, and they waited. So what they did then was they followed these children through their lives. So it was a long-term study. They followed them through schooling, early schooling, and then also into high school, and then into college, and then into their careers. So they have a study that goes over many years. And remarkably, the people who waited, the people who delayed the gratification, did so much better in every area. It was crazy. Okay, so the delayed gratification, which is what we have when we start a business. We're not going to make our money right away. We're not going to be popular and successful right away. We're going to have a lot of hard work along the way. education is that way too. You gotta put in your 4 years to get a degree, whatever. So delayed gratification is an important thing. Now, if you feel like you don't have this, because it is a little bit hard today, we got TikTok, Instagram, boom, boom, I wanna be happy, I wanna see things. If you feel like you don't have it, you can develop it. It's something that's very developable, and you can work on it, but it's important, because this is what, makes you succeed. What did I talk about that? Yeah, I did. Okay. Sorry about that. Growth mindset. You want to be able to take risks, try things, and you have to allow for failures. As I said, many of my pivots, they were failures or just frustrations. I wasn't getting anywhere, and I had to change. Okay, so you got to be able to accept that and be able to do good with that. So that's important. Agile mindset, that's the pivot. You got to be able to change. I've seen so many people that have a good idea for their startup, and they talk to me about it, and they are sold on it, and they go off to build it and to perfect it, and go out and try to sell it. And they're just not getting it. And you have to be able to say, this thing that's in my heart of hearts that I know is so good for everyone else, if everyone else doesn't know it's good, maybe I should be doing something else. So you got to have that agile mindset. And then resilience, that's the work until very late. And it's funny because since I quit my day job, I work more hours now, but it doesn't feel like it. I'm working Sundays, but I'm working for myself, into the night on Sunday because I have an important meeting on Monday. And it doesn't feel so bad, but when I was doing it for someone else, it was a different thing. Okay, so what should you expect? In some cases, you have your side business, but you're thinking of picking up a job because you're not, you need to support yourself. You heard about the venture capitalists, that's something that hopefully will come in, but not everybody has that, at least to the level they need. So, what should you expect if you do this? You're going to have slower business growth with missed opportunities. There were times clients would come to me and they want me to go somewhere for a week, and I couldn't do it because of my job. I could not get away. Okay, that was a missed opportunity. Those things are going to happen. Conflicts of interest we talked about. You have things you have to turn down maybe because they conflict. And that isolation, you don't get feedback all the time, especially if you're working by yourself. That's very difficult. You need to have your network to help you, but still, there's a lot of nights where you're just working on your own. Time management struggles. This is what people said, is a problem. Time management is a problem. There's a lot of distractions in the world, and there's a lot of things going on. So let's look at tips for that. First of all, this is my tips. I have the rule of 3 because I have a whiteboard. It's not quite as big as this one, but I have it on a board in my office, which is one of the bedrooms, because I always have a space for my business that I walk away from if I have my daytime job. And that whiteboard has on it maybe 10 most important things I have going on at the time that I'm juggling at the time. And I always identify the top 3. This is sort of a Warren Buffett thing. You identify the top 1, 2, or 3, forget the rest. So I identify those and I target those for that day or the next day. So that's always there. That's a good rule of thumb to do. And I do that daily. And by the way, AI helps me with this now because it's prioritization. It's great at doing that. The Pareto principle. How many of you heard of this 80-20 rule? Okay, 20% of the benefit 80% of the benefit can come from 20% of your work. So as you know, some of the things are going to be really good to do. They're going to really pay you back. Other things are not quite there. So you want to use this in coming up with your rule of 3. It's a good thing to think about. What's the benefit I'm going to get? Email. I have a 5-minute rule. When I get an email that comes in, and I'm looking at email, so it's my email time, even though it's a distraction. Sometimes it shouldn't be. If I can finish that email and do something with it in 5 minutes, I do it. If it's beyond 5 minutes, that wasn't on my calendar for this time, so I put it on my to-do list. That's a pretty good rule, You have to make your own judgments on it, of course, but that's sort of how that goes. You need to set your boundaries, especially things that are non-negotiable. We have family. We have relationships. We have our friends, and we have our health. Okay, so I prioritize those things in a very special way. Like for my health, I run every morning, and that's a given. It's not on my kid. It's blocked on my calendar. I don't take meetings early in the morning. I have to run. When I have my day sacrifice things. Your family is important. You know, this is, you're living your life, so don't give that up. So keep those boundaries in mind. AI and automation. I'll be giving a talk on this tomorrow for startups especially, but there's a lot of benefits you can get from AI and automation. So keep that in mind. You know, that's something that can really help you, and it helps me tremendously. As a small business, I can now do things on scale with larger companies that I couldn't have done 5 years ago. That's amazing. I have expertise access that I did not have 5 years ago. Okay, so those are things that are really great, and they level the playing field a little bit for us as really small businesses. Work when it's your peak. I again call this riding the wave too. Have you ever gone to bed at night and your head's just flooded with thoughts and things that are there, and that's where you got to get up and write them down? I've gotten up and I've worked at that point because it is so beneficial. Our minds just work in a way where we're going to be creative, we're going to come up and be productive at certain times. Other times we are not. So you can't put it on your calendar and say, this is my innovation time, I'm going to decide what my next move is. It doesn't work. You have to just take advantage of it. And one time I was in my day job and I had a lot of things I was doing there, and it just hit me all of a sudden wow, I got some new ideas, really creative ideas. I canceled my meetings that day because I wanted to continue working with my team on those ideas. I was just riding that wave because you got to do that because you're going to have cycles. So take advantage of those cycles. Okay, so hopefully that helps you with the time management. Talk about the no list challenge. This is one that's pretty important. Okay, the no list challenge. This is where you need to say no. And when I started my business, I absolutely said yes to almost anything. Pretty much anything. And I was driving myself crazy. I was running myself ragged because I would take on a meeting while I was just finishing one with a client somewhere. So I'm in the car calling somebody. And it was just very stressful. And I realized that it's okay to say no. And if somebody really wants you as a client especially, and you can't do exactly what they're saying, they will continue to work for you. So that's something that's very important. Okay, I need a volunteer here, somebody who hasn't gotten a coffee mug. There's a few of you. I want you to tell me, just which one of the two here do you think is higher impact? Simple. Anybody? Yes? Your name?
Brian.
Brian. Okay, Brian. Okay, first one is answering email versus building a sales pipeline. Which do you think is the higher long-term impact? Sales pipeline. Good job.
What if it's a customer question?
Well, it depends. And if whenever you're looking at the email and it is something highly important, yeah. So very good point. It could go the other way. That's what I would answer. Yeah, because email is my time here. What's that? He'll get a cup.
He'll give you a coffee.
James will get a cup. I know that. He's just getting on you. Okay. How about somebody else? One more. Once a month. I'm a patient person. Okay, Ryan. Ryan, you want to tell us what you're doing on your side gig right now, real quick? It's your opportunity here.
Yeah, I'm doing AI consulting, and specifically for small businesses. Wednesdays, I have a free workshop. Wednesdays at 11.
What else?
Oh yeah, running for Delaware County Commissioner.
Okay. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, remember, Kissinger for Commissioner. Get out there and vote today.
Okay. One more. Anybody? Come on. I'm a patient man. Yes, your name? Nick. Okay, Nick. I'm going to give this to you. And I'm going to also ask you an additional question with it. So let's start with this first. Watching a course versus launching something messy. James is going to What do you think? Launching something messy. That's what I would say too. That's my answer, because launching something messy is sort of get something out there. I was an engineer originally, and I've worked with engineers, and it's like they want everything to be perfect. I have that feeling too. It's my name's on it, right? But no, you gotta just get something out there. So here's your coffee mug. But, I'm gonna give you an option here. You can have this coffee mug now, so you're happy, right? Or you can wait until the end of the presentation. Come up to me and tell me something you're gonna do this week based on what you learned, and you'll get 2 coffee mugs. Sound familiar? What's your choice? He's gonna wait, absolutely. Round of applause. All right. That's a great test there. Okay, very good. All right, so the takeaways for today. We're building a business while working full-time. You want to keep in mind that, know what's required. There's a lot of things we talked about that, you're going to get yourself into if you start doing this. Matching your day job to your side business. Take into consideration if you have that option. If you're, just looking for a day job or if you're switching jobs. And, even in my career, I was able to do that. When I would switch jobs, I would think through, is this going to work well with my side business? And the challenges are real. Okay, but the benefits, they're fantastic, as many of you have said already. So I want to just leave you with a quote. This is what I have on a sticky note on my monitor, and it just drove me through the time. It says, live a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life living at a level that most people can't. Okay, so it's the delayed gratification, but people want that. They come up to me and say, oh, how did you do it? That looks so cool. I want to do it too. You gotta put that for a while. Okay, so we have time for questions, and there's also, you can get handouts there. I'm asking for your email, but I'm not going to blast you. I promise. It's just to collect it, maybe let you occasionally know some things. Questions? Anybody have any? Or considerations? Anything you have going on?